Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today. Really nice crowd here, and I know we have people streaming on Facebook. My name is Gene Maneri. I'm the co-founder of the Ella Project, along with my partner and good friend Ashlye Keaton, who's going to be moderating today's discussion, along with Bartholomew, John Stanton. I know that we have a tight schedule, so I'm going to keep it quick. Just to let you guys know, the Ella Project, our organization, focuses on pro bono legal assistance, arts business development, and cultural advocacy. We've been doing this work for about 20 years in different capacities, about 9 years as an organization. I'm really looking forward to today's discussion. This part of cultural advocacy is a very important part of our mission, and I'm glad that you guys are here to join us. Thank you all. Thank you to all the candidates who are here. We really appreciate your time. We know that it is tight, so we're going to get moving. I'm going to bring on my friend Ashlye Keaton, who'll take us from here.
Thank you. Thank you, Gene, and again, thank all of you for being here today. So I'm playing the role of the bossy person today. The way this works is that I'm going to tee up the questions, and our panelists are going to engage you all in discussion, and everyone will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. We have a timer right in front of you, and our friend Bailey will let you know when there's 1 minute and 30 seconds left. And when we call time, we really want you to wrap because as you all know, we don't have that long. So we want to make sure we cover as many topics as possible. So we appreciate that. So I would love for you all to spend a couple of minutes giving your opening remarks if you'd like to do so. We can start with Ms. Carter.
Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for coming today. Appreciate the Ella Project and all of our cultural creatives. Thank you. I am a native New Orleanian, and I believe that's important because this election is about the soul of the city of New Orleans. It is really at stake. I do not believe that New Orleans can sustain 16 years of a non-New Orleanian running this city. We are at a crossroads, New Orleans, and I believe everyone needs to check their hearts. We thought it was a good idea last time. 8 years have passed. What's your thoughts now? You're at another crossroads. Check your heart. Everybody says they're ready on day one. I am too. I worked for this administration for 3 years. I built the social media department. People are like, why are you so rah-rah this city? I love my city. I grew up under leaders. My dad was the first Black elected assessor in the state of Louisiana. I grew up under these boardroom tables listening to all these deals. I know these people personally. My father was a mentor to lots of them. I worked with many of them. We need a unifier right now. We have had too much division for the past 8 years. People want to claim they weren't a part of it. Really? Well, in 2022, I spoke out because our elected leaders did not. There was a list on nolatoya.org. Any of our elected officials could have picked up the baton. They did not. We had 83% of residents saying they are unhappy with the administration. The city council also has oversight. That's their responsibility. That's what you hired them for. So they are supposed to pull people to the table and say, hey, we have issues with this. That's what the recall did because they didn't do it. They still didn't pick up the baton. You had a terrorist attack down the street. They're still silent about it. The will of the people has not been done. I have proven effective that I will speak up for you in closed-door meetings. You can trust me. I am here to be your mayor. You have other options. My name is Eileen Carter, number 17.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. And Bailey, do you want to fix that timer because it's not working?
It's not working.
Okay. All right, we're not doing that time. She's timing you then. Okay, all right, fine, thank you. Ms. Collins, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you guys for having me to the Ella Project, and thanks to all the cultural divisions and everyone who came out today. Your time is super important, so let me introduce myself. I'm born here in New Orleans, Louisiana, an entrepreneur of a mom and pop shop, a grandmother, a local native, one who will stand up with you, for you, in anything that stands up in our way. That's the direction we have to go in the city of New Orleans. The place we all enjoy calling home, the place we love. And I will tell you this, I've become more in love with the city of New Orleans as I have came out and spoke to the individuals. And I ask, what is it that you like about New Orleans? And many of you say, everything. And I'm like, what? Okay. And so I've learned to love New Orleans. I would learn to love to work with you guys and for you as your mayor. I would love to learn what is it that we need to move forward in every neighborhood, in every district, and in every home. And I will ask you to partner with me because I'm that person. I'm the one who wants to collaborate with you. It's not about what has been, but it's about what we can become together effectively for the culture, for the people. Renada Collins, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Duplessis.
Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for organizing this discussion this afternoon. Thank you, Ella Project. Thank you all for being here as part of a really important discussion. My name is Royce Duplessis, and I'm running for mayor because I want to make New Orleans more affordable. I want to make it an easier place to live. And I have the experience, I have the temperament, I have the wherewithal, the vision to move us beyond the dysfunction, to move us beyond the chaos, to bring people together in a collaborative way to get things done for the people of this city. I'm gonna start off with affordability. We need to develop 40,000 affordable units in the city of New Orleans, not for the purpose of saying it, but the purpose of protecting our culture. Our culture is rooted in our people. So whether you play an instrument, whether you're an artist, whether you work in a kitchen, whether you park cars, whether you're an architect, that is all part of the culture of New Orleans. And if people cannot afford to live here, we cannot have a New Orleans. We need to make City Hall more operational, more functional for everyday people. We need to make it an easier place to live because people are feeling the pressure. The cost of living is going up, but the services are not keeping on par. And the math just ain't mathing anymore. Now, I'm New Orleans through and through. Don't get no more New Orleans than me, right? My grandfather, straight out of Treme, he was in the original Square Deal, Second Line Club. And even in his 90s, when he had dementia, he didn't forget how to second line, right? It was one of my greatest memories of him. My uncle, Townsley, part of the Black Men of Labor Second Line Club. My wife's grandfather was the late, great Lionel Furbos, who played the trumpet until he was 104 years old. So when you talk about culture, to me, it's really about listening and seeing the value in what makes New Orleans what it is. And we need a mayor who will treasure that, who will value it, not for political purposes, but to truly keep New Orleans what it is and to make it even greater. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Mr. Janusa.
Thank you to the Ella Project for hosting this symposium, this forum. I'm delighted to be here. And like Senator Duplessis says, he's naturally New Orleans. Well, so am I. I'm born here, raised here, and I'm still here. I'm the third generation descendant of legal Sicilian immigrants who house themselves in the French Quarter right where we are right now. My grandfather, Frank Janusa, for whom I am named, drove the streetcar up Esplanade Avenue for decades. He knew about the culture. He knew about the Italian culture. He knew about the black culture. He knew about the other cultures that came to New Orleans, the Irish and the Germans. He instilled that sense of all-purpose culture in me. The ability to gather people together, black, white, yellow, red, and even gray hairs like me. We have the ability as members of this community. And remember, community comes from two words, calm meaning together and unity meaning all people. As a community, we can achieve greatness. This is a 307-year-old city. It is, in my opinion, the most magnificent city in the world because it's got the mosaic of people, it's got the gumbo of people, it's got people with bright ideas, all of whom are on this stage, by the way. I'm number 22. I'm Frank Robert Janusa. I'm a practicing CPA, and I believe that so many of the problems that are associated with the city government can be solved through the proper use of finances. We've got a $1 billion debt load that the city owes. It has unfunded liabilities of God knows how much. We've got a $100 million deficit expected. I think that certain of the ideas that I have can eliminate those, generate additional revenues. I'm number 22 on the ballot, Frank Janusa, a CPA, not a politician.
Thank you. Councilman Thomas.
The first thing I want to do is thank everyone up here at the table for offering themselves and for the Yellow Project and the leaders of the Yellow Project. This is one of the most important discussions about our past, our present, and what our future will be. I don't want to think about New Orleans just being a city, just being a small town. New Orleans, in many cases, it would be anywhere USA without our flavor, without our rhythm, without our taste, without our beat. So then the question is, spiritually, socially, and economically, how do we stabilize this culture that in many cases is being diluted? In many cases, the people who are the foundations of the culture are being challenged in their very existence, being pushed out of the core of the city. Close your eyes and think about everybody that you need to cook the roux, to play the song, the beat, the cadence, and if they were so far away that you couldn't get them. If they became Snow Valley like Aspen, those people being pushed down into the valley. And so for me, I don't have to sell my resume, man. Probably the only elected official to be king of 2 social and pleasure clubs. Lady Buck Jumpers and Treme Sidewalk Steppers. My wife was the queen. Night One Hunters, my family tribe, Creole Wild West, the Indians. So what do we do to protect that culture, but also to make sure that the keepers of the culture participate economically, not just socially? So for me, this is a spiritual movement. It's a movement that makes up the very essence of who I am. And as mayor, I can't be mayor without our culture.
Thank you. Mr. Twiggs.
First, thank you to the Ella Project for inviting all of us here today. My name is Ricky Twiggs Jr. I'm a licensed professional counselor and supervisor, and I am also the youngest candidate on this stage. And I believe that is so important right now. Right now, the city of New Orleans is at a crossroads in regards to culture and how to preserve it. What we have that is occurring is the fastest youth displacement that still occurs since Hurricane Katrina. Over the past 5 years, we have lost over 30% of millennials that were in this city. That puts a great deficit to our cultural bearers. Where will they pass down the culture to? It has to be us. But we're leaving the city because we can't afford to live here. The cost of living has become so great. And millennials and those younger than me, we have done everything that we were supposed to do, but we still can't survive. We can't even live appropriately. We're constantly worrying about the utility bills, or we're constantly worrying about the rent going up and all of these other factors. We are being marketed out of our own homes and territory. And then when you look at the flip side, in relationship to our culture bearers and those over 50 years old, you're also being kicked out of your homes because you can't afford insurance, because you can't afford the property taxes. This is an absolute disaster that is still occurring since Hurricane Katrina. And we have to make sure, and this is the fundamental part of my campaign, is that right now, more than ever, we do not need another politician. What we need in that seat of mayor is a healer, someone who can unite us and someone that is willing to do the work to actually put forth the effort to take care of everyone in the city of New Orleans and not just a chosen few special interest. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. I also want to introduce our panelists, Don Bartholomew, who is an amazing musician and producer. He also happens to be the son of the late Dave Bartholomew. So when we talk about legacy, you know about that more than just about anyone. And then we have John Stanton, who's the editor-in-chief of New Orleans Gambit magazine and covers these issues and knows them all too well. So thank you both for being here today. Absolutely. Thank you. So most of you alluded to what I'm about to get into, but I think that we can all agree that New Orleans culture, in large part, is what makes it so authentic, distinctive, attractive, and special. It's part of our history, it's part of our present, and it is part of our legacy. It is also our largest economic engine driver, second only to tourism. And a lot of people don't realize that. And of course, our tourists come here in large part because of the cultural community. You know, when they envision, you know, coming to New Orleans, I'm sure that they think of, you know, a person playing a horn in the street, or whether they know what a Mardi Gras Indian is or not, you know, that iconic imagery, right? And so that's something that I think is really significant when we talk about investing, because you know, the culture here is invested in New Orleans for centuries without reciprocal reinvestment by the city. It's, as you all have alluded to, become increasingly unaffordable for many reasons, and you know, between rising costs from everywhere, from everything from, you know, housing to groceries. And of course, this insurance crisis that we have. Climate change has resulted in more disasters, and our failing infrastructure, failed infrastructure, only adds to the challenges of living in a city that floods at any given moment. We continue to see people operate short-term rentals, although we did have a victory in court today, so that's good. But still, it's resulted in rising housing costs and gentrification, which is, of course dilutes our long-standing core neighborhood hubs, which is very important to cultural continuity. So how many musicians do you think have moved away lately? I mean, does anyone know? All I know is that I hear about it happening more and more. Our musicians, our culture bearers, just your average citizenry, right? I mean, because a lot of these problems are universal. People are leaving New Orleans because of its dysfunction, and they really are. And forget Houston and Atlanta. Places like Mobile, Birmingham, Chattanooga, Memphis, even Bentonville, Arkansas, are not dysfunctional. They're more attractive than they used to be. I would have never considered, you know, leaving New Orleans to go to those places. And I don't ever want to leave New Orleans. No one does. No one wants to. But these places are actually attractive now. They've attracted our culture, and they have a great and thriving art scene, and they work. And so, you know, my question, you know, I think that the theme of this particular topic is retention, right? And I want to read to you a couple of stats that the Mayor's Office of Nighttime Economy gave me yesterday from the music census that they conducted last year. Of the people polled, only 51% of creatives said they plan to stay in New Orleans over the next 3 years. Okay, I realize that's about 50%, but that means 49% plan on going, okay? Among the venue presenter respondents, only 40%, this is the venue owners, definitely plan to remain in New Orleans. And 86% cite low or uncertain pay as a major issue, while they struggle with their rent and mortgage payments. So, John, I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Yeah, I guess piggybacking off of that, obviously all of you have a sort of a sense of what our culture means, both in terms of what it means sort of as the vibes, as the kids say, but also economically. But you can't feed yourself on vibes at all, unfortunately. And I'm curious, do you have any specific plans for the creative community, particularly musicians, but culture bearers in general, that would be designed to help keep them home, to not go, whether that be direct, you know, assistance to them or some effort to maybe rebuild our music industry, that kind of thing. Yeah, so why don't we start, I guess, do you want to start?
I'm glad you asked. I think the importance of this conversation is this election, period. Our culture is at risk, and it's on the ballot. And I have a plan. It's called Reverse the Exodus. You can go on eileencartermayor.com and see the whole thing, but I only have 2 minutes. So the first piece is housing, affordable housing. Our housing trust fund, we need to use it and be very specific with how we use it to make sure that it's actually hitting our residents, our cultural bearers, our essential workers, our legacy residents. I believe we need to have a weighted system. From Slidell to Seattle, we need y'all to come home. We need to fill these blighted houses. We need to build on these lots. Why? Because y'all need people in these venues to come see you, right? So we need to get people here and churn the economy as well as make sure that you stay here. That's one. Safety. Of course, we need to make sure that the police have what they need, but safety does not just include that. That means making sure that our young people have jobs, trade schools, work and partner with you in different creative industries. I want to do a citywide internship program. I know y'all need some help. Well, guess what? They need ours. So let's partner y'all together and get those things done. Economic development and workforce development. I'm going to put that one thing. Our workforce development has been decimated in the city of New Orleans, and our economic development has been as well. We each need to look at who is the council member that heads economic development in the city of New Orleans. Well, I'll give you a guess. She's not here. And she has been head of economic development for the city of New Orleans for the past 8 years. And so we really need to look at that, because this is a forum about economic development. And so if we really want to do something different, we cannot continue the definition of insanity. So I say, and then the next piece of that is infrastructure, make sure everything is working, and then community outreach, make sure each of you are heard. So it's the reverse Exodus plan. It's on EileenCarterMayor.com. Thank you very much.
All right. So what I understand is that as culture barriers, we love to create and to design and to have people to purchase our merchandise. So I'm going to like to partner with an airline to make it a hub, preferably Spirit, because Spirit can get people in at a very low rate, and it can also get them out. But my goal is to ask them that for 20 years, they give us a reasonable rate for luggage, because we don't need them to just come and visit us. We need them to take our merchandise with them. People are traveling here, but they're not taking anything back with them. That hurts our artists. It hurts our culture barrier, especially if you're an artist, if you have any type of material. You want to have them to be able to bring that back. I am aware of the culture of New Orleans from the Bubancha, where we existed for over 2,000 years. I am going to allow for festivals to be on the Lincoln Beach. I can see the Bubancha festivals on the Lincoln Beach, the Pontchartrain Beach, where we have water buses and we're going to have water taxes. I'm telling you, culture will live. It will be sustainable and it will be thriving. We will have housing economics when I'll do the Road Home program. That's going to assist with stabilizing the community. So if you're a landlord, how it works, we'll give you a lump sum of money where you cannot charge more than, say if you charge $1,500, we're going to give you $70,000 for 5 years. You cannot charge more than $575 for the rent for 5 years. What that's going to do is stabilize the economy, because it won't be income driven. It'll be, if you can afford it, if you make $8,000 to $80,000, you can rent that place. I am Renada Collins and I have a plan. I only have 2 minutes, so stick around and learn more. I'm willing to share. Thank you.
So leadership always begins with listening. And as I said in my opening remarks, you have to listen to the community in order to best troubleshoot to solve the problems. Now, the statistics that were provided earlier, those were some really stark numbers. 51%, only 51%. That means that half of our culture creatives are leaving the city, a city that was once known as the Big Easy. Doesn't sound like things are too easy. When our people are packing up and saying they would rather go to places like Nashville. There are models out there that we can replicate, but there's some things that I would want to begin with implementing. That would be certainly working with the Office of Nighttime Economy to really implement some of the programs that I know that they've tried to do over the years, like making it easier for our musicians and some of our artists to find easier parking in places where they know they're going to be at a venue, to send them the signal that this is, we care about you, we see you, we're going to lighten the load, working with parking enforcement and things like that. Also, partner with organizations like the Ella Project, who specialize in helping them secure intellectual property, which is a huge component that we don't talk enough about. How to protect the intellectual property of our artists, getting them the health care that they need, getting them the housing prioritization that they need. So part of my plan, as I work to develop 40,000 affordable units, we will prioritize artists, we will prioritize culture bearers to ensure that they have the most basic foundational asset, which is housing. And I believe that the Office of the Mayor has to be a convener, working not just with the Office of Nighttime Economy, but working with nonprofit organizations, working with organizations. And we have a $1.8 billion budget as a city. And I've always said that a budget is a moral document. So we have to find the resources in the budget to help stand up organizations so that they can do the work that they do.
Housing. So many of the artists in the city, whether they be musicians, pastel artists, portrait artists, and other individuals, have a rough time living in the city because, number one, property availability is getting more and more scarce. Rents are going up. Landlords are increasing their rents because their insurance costs keep going up. Obviously, one of the things that the state has done is created the fortified roof program. It simply needs to be doubled or tripled in size so that more and more of the family homes in the city can have fortified roofs, which would therefore reduce their insurance costs. Secondly, on housing. The city of New Orleans owns numerous blighted properties, including 1 and 2 and 3-story buildings close to the Industrial Canal between Dauphine and Charter Streets. Relatively easy to rehab into housing for artists and entrepreneurs and people who live and work in the quarter with easy distance back and forth. Now, speaking of the city, the Orleans Parish School System owns roughly a 20-acre plot of land on Wisner Boulevard, the site of the former John F. Kennedy High School. It is vacant and has been vacant since Hurricane Katrina. 20 acres of land can supply a lot of housing for a lot of people. Secondly, we have to partner with the major banks, those that are located in New Orleans, and the big regionals who are headquartered or at least regionalized here with some sense of purpose. These banks need to be more interested in the artist economy, in those who are the culture bearers, in those who have the ability to keep this city alive. If half the people leave, you can turn the lights off on the French Quarter and kiss the city goodbye.
One of the things that would help with the attitude, especially of established and successful artisans and artists' music, whatever field they're in, is don't be so quick to criminalize the culture. We seem to want to punish faster than we can permit. And so how does that attitude entice people to want to live here, stay here, or continue their craft here, especially in an economy in the world today where you can do just about anything you want from any other place you want. The other thing is that the inventory of properties that most everybody's going to be talking about now until this is over, the school board in the city has vast inventory of property. Let's use a percentage of the Housing Trust Fund to pay down those costs for developers who are interested in housing artists and culture bearers. That would at least eliminate the hard costs of the overhead costs to make it affordable. I've just proposed an artist village in New Orleans East that my colleagues voted against that would have provided housing for artists and artisans and those people in the culture. So we can't let NIMBY affect what is actually the essence of the Ruda community. Another thing is that the people in the culture, those who do the work, play the music, they actually have the answers. I think it was maybe 7 years ago on the Good Morning Show. I had a conversation with Walter Harris, my cousin, Preservation Resource Band. He talked about how can city officials have a parking logo, but why can't we have a parking logo where we can park for free? Because in many cases, if you get a ticket of parking cost you, that's more than half of what you earn. So the other thing, and I've proposed this, is a shuttle. Why not have the municipal auditorium have a shuttle that takes people to the edges of the quarter and the entertainment district if they don't have a car with their shuttle. So there's a whole lot of different things at otforus.com that we can do if we want to permit, not punish.
think one of the most interesting things that keeps getting overlooked is that since 2005, we've lost over 100,000 of our neighbors. They have gone to other cities and they have blessed other cities with our culture. If we are going to start to make sure that we're going to take care of those people that are here that are our culture bearers, then we have to make sure that we are allocating that budgetary money to the nonprofits that are doing the work directly to those community members that are some of the most vulnerable in our city. So many of them don't have access to simple medical care coverage through their gig work or their contract work. And so what happens then is that they become victimized. They are some of the most vulnerable individuals in the city of New Orleans, but yet they bring the joy to the people. And so we have to make sure that if we're going to start to get serious about this, we have to take care of those culture bearers, and they haven't been taken care of effectively. So once again, if we are going, as Eileen likes to say, right, reverse the exodus, right? If we are going to do that, then first and foremost, we have to make sure that those culture bearers are protected. And right now, there's not a whole lot of protection in relationship to affordability, in relationship to housing. They are in the same boat as most of the people in the city of New Orleans. Most of the people in the city of New Orleans are experiencing a financial crisis. One simple hit in relation to a pothole blows your tire, and now you're broke. That is what our gig workers face, and that's what most of the city of New Orleans faces. We've got to get this under control. Thank you guys so much.
All right, how y'all doing? Everybody good? Come on, y'all. This is New Orleans. Everybody good? Yeah. Shit, we ain't dead in here. Everybody just, I'm gonna loosen it up, you know? Yeah. We're not happy, but we're gonna get happy.
I want to hear concrete answers. I want to hear plans. I want boots on the ground.
All right, she want boots on the ground. Y'all know that song, Boots on the Ground. All right. So my question is this. I think what we have to really invest our resources in is the youth. And let me tell you why. Because me being a music producer, I meet a lot of kids that want to do what I do. But there's no, there's no way for them to do it because they don't have the resources to do it. They don't know where to start. They don't know where to end. And a lot of these kids, they wind up being in crime, juveniles, and all kind of other shit. But they have talent. And that's where I come in at. I try to save the youth a lot. I can't save everybody, but I do what I can do. So I think that's important for our culture to make sure our youth carries the torch. You know what I'm saying? So we can have something forward to look for, because if you look 20 years down the line, they ain't gonna have no damn music in New Orleans, no culture in New Orleans, no art, because it's all getting buried. And when I mean buried, our kids are dying every day. There's no outlet. I see it firsthand all the time. So my question is, what kind of resources would you guys be willing to invest in to make sure our youth can be developed professionally? Whether it be music, whether it be art, whether it be just a professional job. You know what I'm saying? Everybody can't be the singer or the rapper or the producer, but there's other jobs. There's promoting. There's behind the scenes jobs. There's professional cameramen. There's filmmen. There's actors. There's a bunch of things people can do, but they don't have the resources to do it. So that's my question to you guys. What can we do? Eileen, we'll start with you.
Y'all, the children are our future. I love the kids. If y'all don't know, I'm from Uptown. Harrell is my home park. And for the past 3 years, I've partnered, kind of volunteered with Don't Stop Dreaming. What they do is They give children the opportunity to experience things they never would. You know, we've gone to judges. We gone to see judges. They've gone to NASA. So they've gotten just experience things that they wouldn't. We went to walk-ons, and they got to see how a restaurant runs. You know, things like this. And so when we start this with our children young, we're building younger entrepreneurs, but they're also getting the cultural taste of New Orleans as they do this. And that's why I believe this citywide business internship with our children, our youth, our young adults is so important. I have a 21-year-old. I've been through all these parks with him, and you know, he's a junior at Xavier's. I'll see him tonight. But a lot of our youth, you know, some of his friends, everybody didn't go to college. You know, they need the options of trade school. They need the options of, you know, some may just want to go into drones. You don't have to go to college for that. So we need to show them the different routes to get there and hold their hands. What are creatives? We're entrepreneurs, right? That's exactly what we are. We're our own small businesses. And the economic development for the city of New Orleans has not been doing anything for us. Let me tell you why. Because there's an office of economic development. And then there's an office of cultural economy. And then there's an office of nighttime economy. So the first office wasn't working, so they made another one. Then the second office wasn't working, so they made a third one. So instead of consolidating and have them all work together, let's spread them out so y'all don't know where to go. So it makes it much harder to get information. Well, guess what? When I was at the City of New Orleans, I went in there as a social media manager, and I said, hey, we need to consolidate this stuff. I'm going to give you the short example. It was our health department. They had all of their initiatives. They had all of these platforms, but nobody was going to the health department. I consolidated, and guess what? Glad I did, because guess what hit us? COVID. I have vision, I have foresight, and that's what I'm going to do for each and every one of you. I've been a small business owner.
Thank you.
And I'm ready to serve you. Eileen Carter, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had the pleasure of sitting down with a couple of organizations about the future for the city with our children. We talked about the food disparity. We talked about being able to assist families who only receive public assistance and why they purchase so much in bulk that it can become waste in the future. But this is one of the things I want to share with you. My model as mayor is the plane model. When you fly, what they say, before assisting the elderly or a child, you have to assist yourself. As the mayor, I will build up the strongest individuals in a home and give the parents the ability to be home so that they can bring their children to the necessary camps, to the necessary opportunities. The issue is not that we don't have the people, it's we don't have the family members who are able to bring them there because they don't have the time to do it because they're working 2 and 3 jobs. So what we have to do is make things make sense. You cannot assist a child unless the head is on proper. So I have resources and opportunities and plans where I've worked with different organizations and foundations so that we could work on the future of our city. Our children cannot be assisted unless the strongest one are given the opportunity to bring them to the resources around the community. Thank you.
So when it comes to our youth, 2 proposals that I plan to lead on at the city level will be to create a universal 0 to 3 program for high quality access to early childhood education. I really believe that's where it starts. We have to start at the earliest stage. We can't wait on the state. We cannot wait on the federal government. The city has to lean in, and that's somewhere I want to lead on. We have the City Seeds program, but not enough kids get served. So building off of Ms. Collins' point about parents having a place to bring their children at the earliest stage, I'm planning and proposing a 0 to 3 program for universal access to high quality early childhood education. Also, reading by 8. Our kids have to be literate by the time they get to the 3rd grade. So whatever path they want to go on, whether that's to be a rocket engineer or to be a saxophonist, we have to have our kids reading at grade level. It's crucial, it's critical. Now, the comment was made earlier about plans and boots on the ground. I don't believe that it should be the job of the mayor to come in, re-engineer, redesign everything, because we have boots on the ground. What we need to be doing is investing in those organizations that are already doing it. Organizations like the Satchmo Jazz Summer Program that's led by Jackie Harris. Organizations like the Black Men of Labor. Organizations like the Ashlye Cultural Arts Center, who are doing the work every day to train up our children, to invest in our children, and give them the cultural competence. Right? It's the city, I don't think it's the city's job to do all of those things, but the city can invest in those organizations who are doing the things. And that's how we build, that's how we grow capacity, not by reinventing the wheel, but just by making sure it's turning as good as possible.
The city is stuck on stupid in a lot of ways. The city spends multitude amounts of money on waste. What I think we need to do is have the city create a department that won't cost it anything. So the city can actually do something without imposing additional taxes or increasing the deficit. And I propose something called the Office of Cultural Entrepreneurship. This is where we teach young people and middle-aged people how to operate their cultural aspect, whether they be a portrait artist, a musician, a saxophonist, a piano player, or anything of that sort. How to run it as a business, how to budget, how to handle employee concepts, how to access healthcare plans. And where's this going to come from? It's going to come from an entity such as, I don't know, Tulane University. It's got a $2.4 billion endowment. Tulane's endowment earned $120+ million in the year 2024. Let's drop some of that money into this department, and let's drop some of that expertise and entrepreneurship that they're teaching at Tulane, which costs at least $60,000 a year. The kids come into Tulane, and then they learn everything, they get networked, and then they disappear. Let's let some of those kids stay here. Let's have that administration at Tulane drop some of their fine professors into this program, even on a part-time basis. They've got enough money. It won't cost the city a dime. It'll teach people how to run their business as a culture bearer.
I want to stick with Don's question about how do we create a new generation of young people, especially to continue this culture. If you know the history of New Orleans, we learn on the street corners. Oh, little Liza Jane. When you talk about Indian culture, oh, I love to hear them call my Indian red. That ought to be part of standard education. That ought to be a partnership with the mayor's office, the Office of Cultural Economy, with our school system, so that tradition continues. The other thing that needs to happen is the next time the business community wants to support a millage, we need a millage for a cultural fund in this city. Period. No one should approve anybody getting a special millage again without a millage or dedicated funds to the very essence of our community. The other thing that needs to happen is that folk need to be educated. We have a lot of people who are not from here, who they're in love or infatuated with the culture, but they don't understand its origin, its history, and what it means. So that conflict. We have a lot of leaders here who they in love with New Orleans and the attraction of New Orleans, but they don't understand the history. They don't understand the essence and the foundation of it. I was part of Anthony Bean's theater troupe, the only theater troupe in the South that did all August Wilson plays. So I understand that. The first time I ever got involved politically, I wasn't elected, but there was a meeting at Coyne High School of the school board when they were talking about cutting out arts and culture and music. No, how do you do that? We need to make sure that we're all vested so we can create more Mr. Bremmers, more Don Bartholomews, more Mr. Hammonds, more Mr. Harrises, many of the great band leaders. But if we're not educating our children, if we're not getting them to understand the importance of it, then at some point it's not only going to be diluted, we're going to have to import people to do our stuff.
Thank you.
few weeks ago, we were all at the Ashlye Cultural Center, and yeah, it was a great forum. And one of the things that I brought up was a story concerning a local high school band that was playing in the afternoon, and they started to receive complaints from neighbors saying that the band was too loud. That is an absolute absurd statement. This is the city of New Orleans. We're gonna put on a show. And if kids don't have an outlet to just show off who they are and what they love to do and what they're learning to do to carry that culture for us, we take out their spirit and we lower their morale across the board. So one of the things that I believe to be absolutely crucial is, first and foremost, we have to protect music culture. We have to protect every single area of culture that we can through legislative action if necessary. We have to make sure that our communities understand that our culture is not up for debate. If you came to the city of New Orleans, you knew what you were going to get. One of the things that I hope we can also do is to infuse mental health, actual mental health, in our school system, so that way our kids can actually have the mindset to be ready to engage in that culture and to be part of it. The other part of this is that I think we need to reinvest into mentorship within our NORD centers, which are already in the community. We have to make sure that that money is getting to where the people can make a direct impact on our youth. And right now we have a bottleneck effect in so many different areas. We have the resources, we just need to make sure that we're using them to their best of their ability. Because right now there's too many bottlenecks, money can't get where it has to go, and therefore services aren't being delivered in the way that we need them to be.
All right, thank you. My next, it's kind of a question and a statement. Y'all got to excuse me, because I ain't used to sitting down and being all tight. I got to stand up. You know what I'm saying, Royce? I got to stand up, man. Especially talking about this topic right here, man. We call ourselves the birthplace of jazz, right? Am I right? You know they got a lot of people don't even know that. And by the way, since I'm standing up, this is the reason why I'm standing up. We are the birthplace of rock and roll. Antoine Fats Domino is the real king of rock and roll. Y'all can clap if we're gonna be truthful here. And my question is, how can we preserve a legacy of Fats Domino, Dave Bartholomew, Dr. John, Allen Toussaint, all these great global people that's known all over the world? To be honest with you, they're bigger in Europe than they are in their own town. How I know? Because I was with my dad all the time in Europe. My dad would jump off the plane in Europe. You think he Michael Jackson. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? It's just my daddy. But they get treated like royalty in other places. Places just as close as Mobile, Alabama, Chattanooga, New York. And we have to find a way to make sure that our legacy stays here in New Orleans. When people come to New Orleans, there's no way they should come to New Orleans and not know about Fats Domino, not know about Dave Bartholomew, not know about Dr. John, not know about Allen Toussaint, not know about Leah Chase. Like, yeah, we see the streets. They got a street here and there. By the way, Dave ain't got a street yet. Let me just throw that in there. But we're going to work on that. But we have to preserve their legacy. So I want to know, what can you guys provide to secure a legacy that we keep that going? Because those guys that I'm naming, those are the ones who we all are following today. Those are the centrators, that the grassroots guys that made this culture of what it is today. And I think we need to preserve that. So I'd say, Ms. Carter. Yes, you first all the time.
Okay. We can advocate. Your mayor needs to be your best marketer. We do a terrible job with economic development, in my opinion. Just like you said, we are appreciated outside of New Orleans more than we are here. Well, that goes for your activists and, you know, those people who speak up as well, because that's why I'm saying we appreciate y'all inviting all of us, because we feel that, and I know a lot of the people at this table have felt that. So we appreciate you saying that. what we can do is advocate. We need to have more events. I'm going to make you laugh because, I mean, I think we're creative, so y'all know about the Gretna Fest that's going on. Did we see the people that they're having? That festival looks more like a New Orleans festival than us. And that's a problem for me right now. We need to have more anchor events. Where was the last big anchor event that came to New Orleans? I don't know. Well, when I was little, my dad had an office in the Energy Center. Oliver, you'd love this story. And I looked down, and there was car racing in the CBD. Y'all are laughing. I'm 46. Right. So this used to exist. So number one, you need a New Orleanian who can go and market our people, who grew up with our people, who know the families, because I know Don. Personally, I know him and his family. I can go say, hey, the Bartholomews, hey, them. That's the difference. When you didn't grow up here, you don't have rooted relationships here, and you just don't know what to be doing. And it's not that we don't appreciate you, because we love the gumbo. We love everyone that comes here and to make the gumbo special, but you cannot be our roux. You can't. A New Orleanian needs to be the roux. And so everyone is a culture bearer, so y'all can take that and digest it and go home with it and share it. Because this is an important election. You want somebody to represent you on an international scale. I want to have all of us start to collab. We had Cheetos and they had Juvenile did a collab. Why aren't we collabing more? Our brands, our music, our artists, there's so many things that we can do. We had B. Mike, and he's the artist all over the country now. Well, guess what? When we had our first influencer roundtable, be really quick, our first influencer roundtable, I created it. And B. Mike got that connection because I created it. I've done it before, and I can do it for you. Eileen Carter, Mayor.
So remember when I shared with you guys about the Spirit Airline? So I have a vision where it's Spirit Airline, the land of culture. There you'll have all different amazing New Orleanians who've paved the way in culture. You'll be able to feel it as you enter into the hub. I think that's why I picked Spirit, because it has the spirit, it has the culture, and we can bring it to them as soon as they arrive. They can have the jazz band, they can have the food, they can have the artists. Can you imagine an airport with that type of hub? Where when you come in, you coming in with the bang. You coming in to New Orleans. So being able to preserve it means that when every person arrives, they should be able to feel that they have arrived in New Orleans and that they're landed in the birthplace of jazz, the home of culture, the city of New Orleans, and the birthplace where we will build more legacy, more greatness, and more opportunity. I would also love to hear what you guys would love to see at this hub. What would you want to be able to have a day at this Spirit Airport, because it's the hub where they'll come in, land in, and it'll be New Orleans, our home, our place, as we even have a place where they come back home to move here. That's just one of the plans, and I just wanted you guys to envision that with me. Thank you.
You know, Don makes a great point. And it's not a new one, unfortunately, that it's hard to be a prophet in your hometown. The story that I understand about Louis Armstrong, even though he became a global icon, is that he didn't feel the love back home. He didn't feel the love, even in his own hometown. Now, New Orleans is undoubtedly the birthplace of jazz. It's not even without question. But there's something about the city of New Orleans. And I don't know if this is what makes us so special, like our charm is also part of our curse. I remember I was in DBA. I was walking in DBA. This was several years ago. This was the time when Lenny Kravitz was living in New Orleans. I used to frequent Frenchman Street. And I was walking in DBA, and I'm walking in line. I'm literally standing next to Lenny Kravitz. And he was just as chill, so I tried to stay chill. I'm a big Lenny fan. And I thought about it. I was like, how is he able to just move how he's moving in New Orleans? And I came to conclude that I think he appreciated the fact that he could move in New Orleans without getting hit with all of the celebrity rah-rah, because that's kind of how New Orleans rolls, right? We are truly the Big Easy. But that does not take away from the fact that we have to hold up our icons and we have to tell the story and we have to preserve the legacy of those who have paved the way to make New Orleans the city that it is. So whether we're talking about musical artists, whether we're talking about civil rights leaders, we have a responsibility as government officials, as city leaders, to ensure that the story is being told, that it's being preserved, and that those who have contributed so much is being lifted up. And we have to do that in partnership with nonprofit organizations, with the educational community, and continue to make sure that that culture is always being protected. So it's an ongoing challenge, but we have to be serious about it. And I agree with Ms. Carter that it's important to have somebody from here to be able to do that.
I've found my thrill on Blueberry Hill. I'm a musician. I'm not just a one-dimensional CPA with great ideas, number 22 on the ballot. Let's talk about musicians. Let's talk about one of the originators of jazz, none other than Buddy Bolden himself. Buddy Bolden, God rest his soul, is buried somewhere in Holt Cemetery in Mid-City behind Delgado. I visited Holt Cemetery. I did a short video on Holt Cemetery. It is an obscenity that Buddy Bolden's remains are unlocatable in the cemetery. Cemetery is also a giant mess. If we want to honor our culture, we need to honor the culture bearers who came before us, and not just the ones who are there now. I think that's just a very simple thing that needs to be done from a pure sense of morality to those who came before us. Now, one thing that really bugs me with regard to the culture bearers in the city, be they music or artistic, is the relative over-regulation of the French Quarter with regard to, for instance, portrait artists, musicians, etc. They're over-regulated, and their occupational license permitting is getting out of control, so I've been told. Item 3. City spends less than $2 million a year out of a $1.8 billion budget. That's not 1% of the budget, as someone has indicated on a forum who did not understand math. It's a 1/10 of 1% portion of the city budget. We've got to utilize that rough $2 million and bring development into this city by dropping some entrepreneurs here. Even if we have to get them from another state or another city, I think we can find it, we can train our people better, and we can get things done.
I want to get back to Don's question. How do we honor our legacy artists and musicians? Don, the last concert my late mother went to was one where she wanted to see her two childhood friends and classmates perform, Dave and Antoine. She didn't call him Fats. It was an Archdiocese gala that was done several years ago. That was the last concert, and the only one, especially as she got older, that she wanted to attend. Why don't we create our own Mount Rushmore, period? The Walk of Fame shouldn't just be downtown. The Walk of Fame could be in any obscure neighborhood from the Treme to Gertown, to the Lower Ninth Ward, to Gentilly, to the Cutoff in Algiers, given our talent, our musicians, where you could have plaques and street markers to identify where Dave and Fats lived or once lived, where Buddy Bolden lived, where Jelly Roll Martin Slade. That's not rocket science. I don't have to introduce the OT for us political platform for that. That's just looking at what other cities do. And then the last thing that we can do, especially from an economic position, and you know, this it's just obvious to me, especially as someone who's an outgrowth of the culture, every event that comes to this city should be paired with one of our iconic heroes or legacy heroes in terms of an event, period. Whether it's Super Bowl or Stupid Bowl or Essence or Jazz Fest or any major festival, honor one of our legacy ancestors in music and industry at that event. It doesn't cost you anything to headline them. But what it does, it helps preserve the culture and promote their contribution to the culture. This is something that all of us who from here think about, man. And especially if you're coming to our city, let's honor the people that's the reason why you're coming.
Yeah, OT, God, great words, honestly. I completely agree with everything everyone has said up here because we are all on the same page. We all know that in order for us to preserve the culture of the city of New Orleans, we have to have somebody that understands what that culture looks like. How can you defend something if you've never experienced it yourself in your point of view? It's really difficult to understand the emotional impact that these cultures have on people at large. What I would say is, in order to preserve it, we have got to really beef up the cultural fund. We got to make sure that people are investing directly into it. And right now, there's not enough capital entering into that cultural fund to spread out to preserve the culture. And I think we have seen also that there's a lot of outside influence that doesn't necessarily care about said culture. After Hurricane Katrina, our public school system was ripped apart. It was exchanged for a charter school system. And in that small change, we lost a lot of our cultural relevance and a lot of our cultural record. We also saw it with our hospital system, where they were taken from public and switched over to private. And so now Charity Hospital, there's a whole generation of people, of kids that don't have any experience with Charity Hospital, such a landmark place for the city of New Orleans. And this is why it is so crucial that we have the culture bearers today have the ability to educate and mentor our children and those generations to come about what these historic sites actually represent, from Louis Armstrong Park all the way up to Charity Hospital. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Okay, so moving topics. For too many years, I was in city council constantly battling, mostly in connection with noise, permitting, zoning, and enforcement. And it's because there were so many city agencies that weren't talking to each other. They weren't playing from the same handbook. And so we lobbied very hard for the establishment of the Office of Nighttime Economy, which you can call it whatever. But we lobbied hard for that after studying other cities, other similarly situated cities with similar challenges. And what we found, what we knew in advance was that what the cultural community needed was an actual point person within the city that could convene stakeholders and listen to their challenges and come up with programming to support their needs. And just in 2020, since 2022, we found that office has developed programming. There's a noise abatement tax incentive now, which is like workforce development, because it's in partnership with Loyola Music Business Program with their students who train with venue operators on abating the noise via soundproofing. They have a parking solution. They've partnered with parking folks across the city to significantly reduce the fees for musicians and other gig workers. And we've talked about why those costs are so important to address. They have a huge strategic plan that I've not read all the way through because it is enormous. So they have great ideas. And I'm curious what you all think about this.
Yeah, I think to put a finer point on it, it seems like the Office of the Night Mayor has had some successes, especially if you talk to folks who run venues or perform outside of New Orleans and other cities, where they might have a night mayor and they feel like they've never done anything. They come here and they're like, oh shit, you actually have a night mayor that actually is working with the venues and the musicians. But obviously we are facing budget constraints coming up here. So this is a pretty simple question, honestly, to all of you. Do you support the Office of Nighttime Economy, and will you commit to keeping it around and working to help it do its job? And Ms. Carter, you can start.
I commit to having a point person for nighttime economy. as in a director type position. And let me tell you why. We are looking at a deficit and we must look at our finances. I am saying we need a 90-day state of the city. My entire plan is on Eileen Carter, mayor.com. In that time, every department head and every office would work with a community member, activist, as well as an expert in the field. In 90 days, I want the residents, our shareholders, to know what's going on in the office. Is the processes, are they efficient? What's the workplace conditions for our people and our neighbors? And are the processes efficient for you? Is it working properly? So that's across the board, from code enforcement to one app to making sure your certificates or whatever you need, the processes move swiftly. So that's what I'm prepared to do on day one. Like I said, beginning, economic development is my thing. I don't understand why we have 3 offices. Why is the money moved so much? Let me give you an example. The mayor can do advisory councils, and they can do them up for a year. We can have all of the same people have their voice and be an advisory council to me as your mayor. You can tell me everything you want to do, and we can go do it. What if we took the money for that fund, for that office, and said, hey, this is an emergency fund for the cultural bearers? Is that a better use of our funds? I don't know. I'm saying let's talk about it. And that's where I am with it, because I believe we need to move our funds around to make them more efficient for you all. I know that, we talked about how we're losing a lot of our young people. We shouldn't have to go ask to go make sure these funerals and beg, and y'all know what I'm talking about. We should be able to take care of our people from birth, our culture bearers from birth to the grave, because they take care of us. And so that's what I'm about. I'm about listening to you and partnering and seeing how we can be more efficient with our funds so I can put them in your pocket and stop taking them out.
Through observation, what I realize is that we are in a tug of war. And the main reason why that can be an issue is because we're operating one-dimensional. When we see ourselves as whole and collective, we will stop fighting for funds and collaborate. As your mayor, I have been working on programs that will interlock. How do we build? How do we take your profits from one of your organizations that you're working with and to put it into the next organization so we can grow? It's a stepping plan. We can't talk about we culture, but this land is my land, this is your land, if we don't come together as if it's our land. How do we build together? As your next mayor, I'm about creating unity in the community. How do we plant seeds that grows off? And then, because I'm an aloe vera planter, right? I take an aloe vera plant, I plant one, I take a piece of it, I put it in another pot, and I grow another one. That's what we need in New Orleans. I'm tired of the division, and it's time that we come together, collaborate together. I do have a plan, but I only have 2 minutes, and y'all don't have enough time for me to share everything. But if you understand the concept of where we'll be going, you'll be able to understand how we can move forward. It is all for a better New Orleans. Together, one NOLA, one strong, New Orleans. Thank you.
The answer is yes. And I don't say that yes. But with yes, we have to recognize that the office was born out for a reason. Other cities have similar offices. And we have to be about the business of sharing ideas, exchanging ideas and policies with other cities, not just U.S. cities, but international cities that also have challenges with their nighttime economies. So this is about having resources in place, having experts in place who are embedded in the nighttime economy where we can work through the challenges, whether it's issues around parking, safety and permits, insurance, public safety generally, so we can, alcohol, liquor licenses, all of the things that, or noise ordinances, all the things that our nighttime economy venues are faced with. the fact that the office was created meant that there was an issue we were trying to solve. So yes, I will absolutely support it. I'll be committed to making sure we have the best possible leadership who can be an ambassador for the nighttime economy and work to bring people together to solve these challenges. Look, New Orleans is the most culturally significant city in the world, in my opinion. So for us not to have such an office would be a tremendous disservice.
1 is the loneliest number that you'll ever know. 1, O-N-E. That's the anagram for Office of Nighttime Economy.
I like that.
I'm an artist. I have to be creative on the spot. I won't sing anymore for you. Seriously, the concept of 1, we need the Office of Nighttime Economy to be the central focus of all of the entities inside of city government, all these various departments, whether it be safety and permits, NOPD, a variety of other ones, obviously, and the mayor's office also. We need to take the information that they can create, put it inside of a funnel, mix it all together, and come out with a single answer to all of these questions and all of these desires and all of these needs. That's the only way we'll ever achieve anything. We cannot constantly be operating as separate silos inside of city government. It's counterproductive, it's inefficient, it's ineffective, it wastes money. And that's another reason why I say the city is stuck on stupid. The city has to realize and understand that the area in and near the French Quarter is the diamond in the rough in this city. Why do we need a nighttime economy? Because why it needs to be improved is because there were extreme issues with regard to safety, with regard to timing of bar hours and things of that nature. So we're sort of evening those out right now. But we need to have a solid, simple place where the ideas get mixed up, talked about, discussed, and collaborated upon, and come out with a single solution, not a bunch of silos.
How do we maintain and grow and take further advantage of the Office of Nighttime Economy? First of all, as mayor, that office not only has to be maintained, but it has to continue, and it has to be developed and invested in. I like what they're trying to do now with expanding the footprint, and that effort is already underway. As mayor, my Office of Nighttime Economy is going to have a relationship with the King of Tourism for the state, the Lieutenant Governor. Any effort to advertise, they ought to have a relationship in terms of how you advertise, what that advertising looks like, and how it benefits that office. New Orleans and Company, how do we host, and we're approaching that 20 million, between 17 and 20 million visitors without them having a plan or considering Ella or the people in that industry with how should we take those 20 million or 17 million and help them expand the footprint. Those meetings should happen on the front end. This piece isn't really rocket science. All the mayor has to do is say, this is my office, this is the head of my office, I want them embedded into what the state tourism officials do. I want them embedded into what New Orleans and Company does. So as those people start to spread around, look, all the money shouldn't just be spent by the sliver by the river or those bars that folk know about or are directed to. So let's start spreading it out. Let's take those 20 million of those visitors to make sure that at least they know where this spot is and that spot is and that spot is. And let's start like we have golf trails and swamp tours, right? Let's set up the same type of trails and tours for our cultural economy.
Absolutely, yes. And again, I believe the most important thing that we can do is to make sure that whatever money is generated during the nighttime economy is actually going to the people that need it the most. And for time and time again, we have seen that most of that money is getting tied up in bottlenecks and not going to the people that absolutely need it. And again, those are our culture bearers, those are our businesses that are, as OT said, not just by the slither by the river, right? And so we need to make sure that we are not engaging in any sort of political subterfuge with that money, and that money is actually going where it has to go. Thank you guys so much.
So recently, the NOPD suggested that it would begin to enforce certain measures that would make it harder for social aid and pleasure clubs to hold their weekly second line traditions. For years, that parading culture has been dealing with permitting fees that are drastically different from some of the much lower fees imposed on Mardi Gras crews like Rex and Zulu. Art markets and other special events are required to have bonds now. Artists in Jackson Square are constantly struggling with rules that are not consistent among various agencies, and trust me, because there's 12 of them, and I've had to deal with them, and it's awful. I mean, it's like, what to do with the tarps in the rain? Just cover the artwork, but that's a thing. Permitting for live music is so confusing. There's just no way. Like, I love live music, but I think you have to be crazy to open up a live music venue. The definition of live music and live entertainment is also just confounding.
Yeah, here I go standing up again, y'all. So the question is really, do you guys believe in the second line culture and the street parades? How can we protect the street parades and the second line culture? And also, while I'm standing up, I see Mill Hall, who plays for Irma Thomas. Y'all can give him a hand. Irma Thomas, saxophone player. I see Super Deezy back there. These are the people that's keeping this culture going. I see Gladdy, who is a phenomenal saxophonist, plays with everybody in the city. Glad to see y'all, brother. But the question is, how can we make sure that these guys get paid easier, streamlining, through the parades route, through second lining? Do we believe in this? Because they make their living like this. No parades, no money. No second lining, no money. Which means, how you gonna pay your rent? How you gonna pay your car note? All that shit, you know? It's a trickle-down situation. So we need to make sure that this is taken care of, some sort of way, because without these guys, there ain't no culture. And culture is not just music. Don't get me wrong, because I can talk about art and everything else, but I'm just using these guys because I see them in the audience. But without people like this, there's no culture. So how can we make sure that this is, you know, this is preserved and we can make sure these guys make money? Ms. Carter.
This election, I'm going to say it time and time again. Our culture is on the ballot. Every question alludes to it. It's something people don't want to say because they don't want to make people uncomfortable. I don't have a problem doing that. We cannot complain about gentrification in New Orleans and continue to vote for it. There was someone who put something online. She was like, our mayor is from California. Our sheriff is from here. Our this is from that. Our this is from that. Well, there was a time in 2019, I sat in my office on the second floor of City Hall, and I was like, I am the only black woman on this floor from New Orleans in a titled position. That should make each and every one of you uncomfortable. We played this game for 8 years because we thought it was fun. It's not fun anymore. How uncomfortable are you? It's because they don't understand our history. They do not have roots here. It is what it is. It's not a mean thing. It's just you weren't here for it. They weren't here growing up on the parade route, sharing anything that was in your ice chest with whoever. They didn't grow up at the Saints game slapping each other's hands and not caring who's next to you. They didn't grow up, you know, at the second lines and, you know, scooting down the street doing your thing. They didn't grow up doing it. While we appreciate you coming here, you cannot represent us in those manners. So what is the first thing we can do to take care of our culture? Vote Native. And there's been a lot of complaining and a lot of division. Well, guess what? We're going to leave that over here because I'm the UNITY candidate. I'm ready on day one. I've worked at City Hall. I've been a city worker. I've actually slept on air mattresses at City Hall. I've stood in the eye of the storm, literally. Remember that band that went around New Orleans and missed us? I was standing in the middle of it with Ramsey Green, our head of infrastructure at that point. I've been there. I'm an essential employee. I was actually giving them information. Y'all know it's true. And so it's the truth. They know me, and I'm ready to work with everybody on day one. And I'm no party, so I'm not run by anybody.
The reason why the culture is important to me is because I understand the spirit that it brings to the city of New Orleans. When we second line, whether you knowingly or unknowingly, you are releasing an energy that is within the city of New Orleans. When we stop that, we stop New Orleans. When I was at the city council meeting, when they were trying to put the $5 million requests on the culture barriers to hold, I said, if insurance is important, let's utilize some of the monies from the general funds of the budget to provide money, yeah, as well as insurance. I'm not saying this here just today because I'm in front of you. I said it when I was at City Hall. As your mayor, I will work with City Hall to ensure that we are paying because it's a job. I can't ask you to elect me, well, I'm going to get a salary, but then ask you to keep the culture going and you do it for free. It's a two-way street. I'm going to get paid because I'm the mayor, and you're going to get paid because you're keeping the culture alive. Let's make it make sense. And we have resources and opportunities in the budget to do so. So, wanted to make sure I have all that going. Okay, thank y'all. All right.
So I want to just begin by saying that unfortunately I have to leave. I have another event that I have to get to, but this is an important question that I want to make my final answer, and just thank you all for what you all do for our culture. So there are barriers and there are pathways. When we make policies, we're either making a pathway or we're creating a barrier. Specifically, when the city council created an ordinance at the request of the New Orleans Police Department to give them more discretion around how they regulate second line parades, they allowed for the NOPD to come with this request or this requirement for the $5 million insurance. Now, to me, that was more than just safety. That was a deterrent in many ways to say we're going to put a $5 million policy requirement on these groups that they know they couldn't afford it. So that was pretty clear, in my opinion, in terms of what that was. So we have to be cognizant when we're policy making what we're doing. Either we're making it easier or we're making it harder, and there's really no in between. So that is low-hanging fruit in terms of not doing anything, Don, to do anything that's going to make it harder for our artists to perform, to be able to do gigs, to be able to ultimately earn an income. And that to me is just common sense. So always keeping an ear to the ground, always keeping an ear to what it's going to take to keep the culture alive is essential, because if we don't allow these individuals, these groups to be able to earn a living, they're not going to stay in New Orleans. They'll find other places to take their talents. So I think we have to always be thinking about whatever policies we're entertaining, understanding the consequences of those policies, because it's either going to create a barrier or it's going to create a pathway. Thank you.
I'm not going to sing. First of all, we've got to stop overregulating the social and pleasure clubs, the second line groups, and those neighborhood associations that keep the culture alive, keep it buoyant, that keep it alive to the people, that keeps it inside their hearts and their minds. New Orleans is not a city. New Orleans is a lifestyle. New Orleans is a dream come true for some people, but not everybody. We've got to make that dream come true for everybody. By giving these organizations, these second line groups, we need to give them freedom. We need to cut their permit fees substantially, like maybe 90% cut. That's what we need to do. This will enable them to have their second lines, have their parades, have their umbrella events, and this will be a way to keep the culture going. Further, we need to bring back more black entrepreneurship into the French Quarter and the surrounding areas, so that those individuals who make up a substantial part of the culture bearers in the city will actually have an ownership interest, an equity interest in some of the businesses there, that they should be trained and informed so that they can actually start the businesses, keep them moving. That benefits everybody. Benefits, benefits them, creates jobs, city collects sales taxes, and I think that's the way to go.
One of the things that I would like to see happen, is sticking with the question, is as mayor, it would be great to have my employees meet with the groups, the social and pleasure clubs, while they're planning their event. Who's in the group? What's the history of the group? What's the traditional route? How many characters do you have? So they can at least understand who's parading, why they're parading, what the theme of the parade is, and its historical impact on those communities. The second thing we could do is that allow neutral ground parking for those events. We allow it during other events in emergencies. And then while you're developing that relationship of sitting to understand who that group is, along the route, where are potential parking and staging areas that can be identified before the parade starts? But you got to really kind of want to do that and understand and have a willingness to understand the culture to do that. So it shouldn't be surprising on the back end. The groups are working with me now. We had our first meeting to clean up some of the policy stuff. Now, and to also create an oversight committee where the members of the social aid and pleasure clubs make recommendations who will be on that committee. So in the future, we'll have an ordinance, we hope, that represents not only the culture, but takes a lot of the nuisance and the petty stuff out of it. And I can say right now, I mean, I'm probably the only one in this race that Treme, their second season, did a whole episode on me fighting to stop them from overburdening the culture and actually penalizing the culture. There was a whole episode done around a whole piece that I did when the city was trying to overburden with fees and penalize and stop major events.
Thank you.
I think one of the things we have to look at as aggressively as possible is, why is there not enough transparency in relation to permits? We need public dashboards that are live and ticketed, so that way these things are actually in some sort of order so people can actually see what's going on. Because right now, there's so much red tape around it that you don't even know where you are in line for these permits. You have no idea. So we got to clean that structure up as aggressively as possible. And the best way to do that is by enacting live dashboards so that we can actually see where your ticket number is and what the solution is to that ticket number. There is nothing like that currently. You're just kind of praying that it goes through, unfortunately. The other part of this is that I believe that in 2020, there was a relief fund, a temporary relief fund set up by the New Orleans Business Alliance, I believe, for COVID relief for gig workers specifically. I believe we have to start to really look at how we can leverage a fund like that. So that way, in case something happens like COVID again, or if there is some sort of disaster that happens, our gig workers are not left without a paycheck. They have a way to take care of themselves, to take care of their families. That is how we do this. We set up the checks, we set up the balances, and we act in a preventative manner and not in a panicked manner when something finally does happen. We got to have this structure set up and in place and ready to go.
Thank you so much. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but if you have time for one more question, would you mind?
Sure.
Okay, one more. And if you need to go, please go.
Another question or another song?
I can make this pretty easy and quick. In the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen a lot of enforcement of regulations, some of which go back to the 1950s that don't seem like they were ever intended to be used in these purposes against things like art markets, small little things in neighborhood parks, kids selling cold drinks under the bridge during second lines, people selling food under the bridge. And it seems like it's been very aggressive and for absolutely no real benefit that I can not necessarily see. So I guess this is a kind of easy yes or no question. If you're mayor, will you continue that practice of enforcing these rules against, small markets and vendors and things like that?
When elected mayor, I promise I will not impose an occupational license permit on children selling lemonade or children selling water under the Claiborne Avenue overpass. Another reason why the city is stuck on stupid. It concentrates on the minutiae of daily life. It doesn't concentrate on the big picture. That's the whole problem, stuck on stupid. And this is not the only manner that it acts that way. It does that in so many other areas that affect you every day. This is a little off topic, but just give me a few seconds. Entergy sold its natural gas utility to Delta Utilities. And Delta Utilities says, it's wonderful, we've got 700 people working in the city of New Orleans. Well, when you pay your bill, that bill goes to Dallas, Texas. When you pay your Cox bill, it goes to Atlanta, sometimes Charlotte. These call centers, these processing centers, should be maintained here in the city of New Orleans for these giant utilities. So that's one thing. Stop concentrating on the minor items. Kids selling water, kids selling lemonade, art markets. Let the people alone. For the grace of God, let them alone. Let them live. Let them have their culture.
Thank you.
Absolutely not. Like, it's just ridiculous that we even have to have this conversation. And I go back to, we're having this conversation because we have somebody who not New Orleans leading our New Orleanians. Okay, so just wanted to make that clear if I haven't said it enough today. That's why we have these problems. What I actually have this on EileenCarterMayor.com, but one of my ideas, I believe we need a French market for natives, and we can move it around the city and kind of see how it works. The Claiborne area was a business force for African Americans, and the Claiborne Bridge came through and knocked it all out. But you know what? We still gather there, and so why should we, be penalized because of where we gather? Because the federal government wanted to do their thing. So I believe we can utilize that better for our creatives and for our community with our musicians and our food vendors and our artist creative brands. I think we could. They do festivals under there, so why can't we do it in a more collaborative fashion? And then actually work with economic development when they're more efficient under me, and then make sure all of the back offices for each one of those businesses who works there isn't taken care of. Because are you a DB with the city? Have you worked that process? What does your certification process look like? Did you know that actually if you get your DB through the state that you can get reciprocity through the city and you don't have to do the paperwork twice? That's a tip for anybody out there. But these are the things that you need to understand, and our small businesses aren't getting the information. And that's why I'm saying having 3 different departments working and not of them talking together properly is inefficient. I believe we can make the process more efficient to make your time with your back office a little bit more seamless so that you are actually doing what you love, whether it's be painting or singing or sharing or whatever it may be. We need you to be doing what you love, because that's why people come to New Orleans. They come to see you all. And if you aren't doing what you love, then we're not doing our job. And I believe that the city of New Orleans has not done their job for us for the past 8 years, and the will of the people has not been done. But when I'm mayor, the will of the people will absolutely be done, and I want to create an advisory council.
Thank you.
So I will always listen to you.
And Oliver, you could check me on what I'm about to say. We have been given, I want to say, the $42 or $46 million to take down the bridge, the Claiborne Bridge.
No, several hundred million.
700 million. How many did I say?
Several hundred million.
So we need 42 million left or something. I know it's a deficit that we was having, but what I'm saying is that because we haven't utilized those funds, I would like to see if I could suggest that we implement those funds into the development of the people for the culture that are under the bridge trying to make a living. Who I will tax panhandlers. I think if anybody should be taxed on anything, are the panhandlers who are asking me for my money with nothing in return. So to minimize the issues that we're having, I will not, to answer your question, I will not keep going forward with I call it disturbing the peace. I will not continue to disturb the peace by harassing the vendors underneath the bridge or in the French quarters. I will give them 1 year to be able to get their business in order, because we still have to have boundaries in place. So I will give them 1 year to get their things in order. And then if they do not do the necessary things, I will then put taxes on them. But I can't ask a business entrepreneur who has a brick and mortar to get their paperwork and then turn my eye to the other one. We have to have the due process all across the board. Thank you.
The underground cultural economy bought homes, purchased cars, paid for kids to go to college. Thank you. So for anyone who understands that, it'd be absolutely ludicrous, especially because it's part of New Orleans culture, from the frozen cup lady to the grill man on the corner of Simon Valley and Washington Avenue. That's where you get your best hamburgers during the second line, right? So anyone who's talking about shutting that down, especially with what we know now, is absolutely short-sighted and in many cases heartless. In this town, the haves and the have-nots, a third of our population has lived at or below the poverty level, the reporting poverty level, for the last 60 years. From the middle of the Landry administration to now, your largest demographic, the African-American community, where most of the culture keepers come from, are 10 to 12 times poorer than they were pre-Katrina. Black children are economically poorer than they were pre-Katrina. African-American women, many of them who sew another backbone of the economy, ones who made my suit and my wife's suits as king and queens of culture parades, make 49 cents on a dollar. So for anyone else, 49.3, 47.8. So anyone who's talking about shutting down that part of the economy, not only do you not know New Orleans, then you don't understand how people have survived in this city. And it's not getting any easier. So what we ought to be trying to do is meeting with the organizations, meeting with the folk who are members of the underground economy, and how do we legitimize you, if that's possible? And if we legitimize you, how do we make sure you have a standard place on a route where you are permitted to do your business? Oliver Thomas, y'all.
Thank you.
I'm just not a big fan of charging people for trying to make a living, right? I think what we have to be very mindful of is, why have there been barriers put into place, right? And oftentimes these barriers are put into place usually because of some sort of classism belief or some sort of racist belief in general. And we have to make sure that, number one, we're not discriminating against vulnerable individuals across the board. And we also have to make sure that we are empowering our community members to actually have a say in how they make money. And how about, instead of them having to come to us, we can actually go to them to make that process a lot easier. And so what I would recommend is that we know who's out there. We know who's selling the cold cups. We know who's selling all of the hamburgers and fixins like that. Let's just go out to them and start making this process a lot easier across the board. If we have the manpower to do it, let's go ahead and meet people where they are, instead of praying that they come to us and then fining them for not doing that. That's absurd. We got to make things easier for the people of New Orleans. It's been very difficult for everybody here. Let's make it a little bit easier.
Just not just happening. I think too many people think that economy is nickel and dime, right? It really isn't. My wife and I could have bought a car cash based on what we spent to be king and queen of Treme Sidewalk Steppers.
Okay.
For
I appreciate-
real.
I
So
appreciate that.
people who don't understand it are ignorant to the fact of what the folk who put on the parade, of the social play, how much they spend. You're talking about a cumulative of millions of dollars. So at some point, the public is going to have to be educated so they know you're not just giving somebody a route, you're not just giving somebody a parade. They're contributing to the economy of this community.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, and many thanks to each and every one of you for being here today. It's been, I think, a very insightful discussion, very illuminating, and we appreciate your time, and we appreciate your staying overtime. So as not to keep you all any longer, I'm going to pass the mic to Don because he closed this out in a much more fashionable way than I can.
She want me to stand up again. First of all, let me point out someone who's carrying on the torch and keeping our culture going, Miss Naja Kojo, who's with the Dixie Cups. See, they got people in here y'all don't even know any of. See? First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all the candidates. You guys answered the questions very well. I'm overwhelmed. I'm happy. I think New Orleans is, we can look forward to having a bright future, whoever it may be, because I think all of you guys are qualified. I appreciate you guys. And let's keep the legacy going with Antoine Fats-Domino, Dave Bartholomew, Dr. John, Allen Toussaint, and all these great people. And also remember, though, whoever take office, you guys have a legacy too as well. And that's part of New Orleans, right? Everybody in here has some sort of legacy. Everybody has parents, brothers, something. So let's just all make it right. You know, we got enough wrongs in the world. Time to make it right.
Thank you.
Here you go, John. John said he ain't got nothing to say. Y'all have a good evening. Thank y'all.